Hello everyone, good time of day to all of you. This is Grandmaster Alex Yermolinsky. Welcome to my bi-weekly show here on the Internet Chess Club. Well, the talk today, of course, is going to be about Magnus Carlsen. Yeah, I took the liberty to title the show Bad News Magnus. Indeed, if you think about it, Magnus is the centerpiece of the chess world. He's not just a world champion and the highest rated player, and the winner of majority of tournaments held in the past, I would say, 5 years. He's also a brand, he's a trademark. In some ways, chess meant Fischer, particularly for the American audience. And the large following, obviously. The games from the Reykjavik 1972 match, Fischer-Spassky, they were shown live. On one of the broadcast channels, I cannot tell which one, and considering that back then people were on average receiving, there may be 7 channels per household, not 700. Well, that was something. Then, of course, was Garry Kasparov, and his attempts to give chess more exposure, and he tried very hard, and some of things that he had done, maybe turned out to be counterproductive, but not to lack of effort. And, but now it's Magnus Carlsen. Now, is that Magnus's personality, or is that just a top-notch promotional campaign? I would probably say the latter. But I can't blame Magnus. Magnus soldiers on. Like every day, after the game, he goes to that studio they have over there, and at the end of a broadcast on Norwegian television, there at Channel 2, then Magnus shows up after his game is over, and then he talks about his game, rain or shine, and it's basically has been rain, and can't blame Magnus for dropping the ball and not doing his part, but all the same, if you go back, and think of Fischer and think of Kasparov, those guys, they had this high volatility in their behavior and all that, they were burning for the game, and sometimes you burn out, and they were both known for, when the things were real going tough, they would just crawl into their shell and simply will not show themselves to the world. Examples, numerous. Bobby Fischer loses in a silly way first game of the much anticipated 1972 match to Boris Spassky by capturing a truly poisoned pawn with his bishop. Loses that game, and then he doesn't show up for the game 2 at all. Jeopardized the whole thing, he could have been forfeited. It was Spassky's decision to continue the match. Alright, some years later, Garry Kasparov goes to play a final candidates match on his way to playing Karpov, and his opponent was the venerable Viktor Korchnoi. And guess what? Garry loses the very first game with the white pieces. He did show up to play game 2 and game 3 and all that. It took him until, I think, game 5 to equalize the score and get things going, and then he wiped the old man totally off the board, of course, as he was supposed to do. But as the rumor goes, he didn't leave his room for 24 hours. Didn't go for meals or anything after that tough loss. I mean, sometimes chess players, they simply need to become kind of antisocial. And for some people, it's maybe their natural state of mind. But even for the most outgoing person, sometimes when chess really treats you in a harsh way, you simply have to find some kind of an outlet and for your emotions, and it's very hard to do when you're in a fish tank 24/7, 365. Well, I'm thinking, yeah, okay, we'll return to this. I would like to hear your questions, guys. Now, I know that some of you are watching the show on the server, and I know that the audience kind of builds up as the show goes along. That's why I'm really not in a hurry to get to the chess part. But I gotta tell you one thing, that, well, I'm not gonna show you anything new today. You must have seen all the 4 games that Magnus played so far. And actually I felt maybe a bit uncomfortable like dedicating this show to a chess subject that has already been covered, in many different sources. But all the same, I thought that I can't just pretend that this is not happening and sit there and talk about some other relevant things when we have a young, still world champion experiencing maybe the hardest time in his life, in his yet short chess career. So, I would like you guys to, if possible, to open a browser and go on twitch.tv/Internet Chess Club. Internet Chess Club, all in one word. twitch.tv/Internet Chess Club. Now, over there, well, we're gonna have, we're actually having a chat room. You can follow, you will see the chessboard and all that. You can also see me on the webcam, and you can also type your questions in the chat window. I really would like you to do this because that will determine which way the show goes. But for now, as they say, let's go to the videotape and let's see what happened at the chessboard. All right, first game. Oh, that fateful game. Magnus was white against Vasilin Topalov. Now, there is a lot of talk today that if this game came to its logical conclusion, which was Magnus's win, of course, then obviously Topalov would not have had 3.5 out of 4, and Carlsen would not have had, half point out of 4. That's fairly obvious, but most likely that Topalov would not even have had 2.5 out of 4. And Magnus probably would have had more than 1.5 after 4 rounds. Okay, let's see what happened. So up to this point, this whole thing was kind of a typical Magnus game. He didn't get much out of the opening because he didn't even bother trying. Well, then received this kind of stable position with possibilities of improvement. That's exactly what Magnus likes. And his opponent, Vasilin Topalov, throughout his chess career has been known for playing actively and never been known as a sturdiest defender and all that. So it seemed like the game was going exactly Magnus's way. They got to this point. You can see queens and opposite color bishops. And white, of course, has the b pawn, but it's black's turn. Does it not have video and stuff, since I mentioned that? Or you should be able to see it. Well, sometimes you need to refresh that window, because you may be sent to a commercial. That's what Twitch does as you log on. Yes, I do answer questions here, Sandon, so you can type anything. Alright, great. And bring more guys over here while you're at it. How about shouting out, on the server that Yermo show is on, and let us all go to twitch.tv/Internet Chess Club. Anyway, so in this position, well, black has to take the d pawn. And I was thinking, he took with the bishop. Now, that sacrifices the pawn on h6. In return, of course, black is trying to attack the f2 pawn. Now, the thing about queens and opposite color bishops, that it offers more defensive chances than, say, rooks and opposite color bishops, because it's easier to combine the power of your queen and bishop for counterattack. Now, the target obviously is f2, which white cannot protect with his own bishop. So, as purely defensive for defensive purposes, purely defensive purposes, probably this is not the best material, but it gives you a possibility to counterattack. So Topalov took with the bishop, but, well, he could have taken with the queen. Well, the purpose of this would be not to give up that pawn on h6. I looked at this position. I thought maybe it was a better choice. The endgame after queen trade is a draw. Now, how does Carlsen approach these situations? He's been in these situations very many times. He just simply plays his best moves. He doesn't really worry a lot, if there may be some drawish continuation over there. He plays his high percentage chess. And I think that I want to make an important point here, that more points he has in a tournament, better he's doing in a tournament, more confident Carlsen in playing his favorite kind of chess. Yeah, every once in a while somebody will save a draw against him. But more often than not, Carlsen will bring the point home. So he is in his comfort zone and doesn't feel a whole lot of pressure. Now, I don't know what he would have done here round one. Maybe he would play this. Now, it's actually pretty difficult for black to play this position. Maybe the best is to play this move. Try to get the bishop around and maybe bring the bishop to d6. The white pawn will go all the way to b7. Black has to be very careful here. His king is open. Look at this move. After b6. Looks very logical, but I think it loses on the spot. There comes this check, and followed by b7. Oh no, maybe there's queen g4. Yeah, anyway, so the position would be still very dangerous, but let's see the game continuation. Topalov did not play the most precise way. He didn't play this endgame too badly. He actually played a lot of good moves. But, I have a question. Alex, do you think Carlsen will get back to 2870 plus? He seems pretty beat down. Now, in this tournament, he probably needs to win a couple of games. I don't really know if it's a big watershed, 2870, as a starting position for the 2900 run. Oh well, I was never really thought that Carlsen would necessarily reach 2100 because it's not his fault. He plays well and he scores his points. But the thing is that his opposition, they're trailing too far behind. So his projected score against guys like Caruana and Nakamura was... if they're at 2800, then a 2900 guy has to score nearly 2/3 against him. And that's very difficult to do, 66%. Well, as good as Carlsen is, but when these guys, get to 2850, then Magnus would only have to score maybe 60% against these guys to become 2900. Then, of course, you would say it's no big deal because of rating inflation. So that's just my opinion. So as far as him getting back to this 2870 mark, he needs to win 2 games out of the remaining 5 and not to lose any. I think it's entirely possible. As a matter of fact, I kind of expect Magnus to have a good second half of the tournament, and I wouldn't be surprised if he finished the tournament at 50%. A lot, pretty much everything, depends on the very next game he plays, because he has a beatable opponent, Alexander Grishuk. Alexander is fighting his own demons, personal problems, whatnot. He hasn't had one good tournament in the year 2015. And he only won 1 game, started off this tournament with a bad loss. Only won 1 game against the tail-ender Hammer. And he's at 50%, and Magnus really has to win this game. And Magnus has a day off to sleep on it, and reevaluate the situation and hopefully make necessary adjustments. We're going to be talking about this. What adjustments need to be made? I will share my opinions and also opinions of others. But if Carlsen wins this tournament, then Magnus will be in a very dangerous position. Because he has a beatable opponent, Alexander Grishuk. Alexander is fighting his own demons, personal problems, whatnot. He hasn't had one good tournament in the year 2015. And he only won 1 game, started off this tournament with a bad loss. Only won 1 game against the tail-ender Hammer. And he's at 50%, and he has a day off to sleep on it, reevaluate the situation and hopefully make necessary adjustments. We're going to be talking about this. What if Magnus doesn't beat Grishuk, and if he doesn't play a good game against Grishuk and doesn't win, say he plays a draw but in a so-so game, then I don't know, then he may even continue the slide. I think the next game will tell us, and we have, there's about 18 hours before we know. Yeah, most of everyone in the last 5 rounds, yeah, maybe, but he needs to, as they said, you need to break the bad streak. Now, different ways of doing this, but let's look what happened in this game still. So I'm gonna go real quick. So Topalov sacrifices this, and now he's trying to find a way to hit this pawn on f2. Now the game was in its approaches to the first time control, and Magnus, somewhat surprisingly, he wasn't really low on time, but he was a little uncomfortable, and Topalov maybe sensed it in a practical way, started playing faster. So Topalov really built up a lead on time, and it's a common strategy when your position is bad, and you're seeking counterplay and trying to confuse your opponent, then you play faster. That has been used by the young Anand all the time. That's why he was so difficult to beat, and also Topalov, he knows how to do such things. Now, precision will suffer in his play, you will see. But some people, and Topalov among them, believe that's a high percentage game, because in a situation like this you may be lost anyways, regardless of how precise your play is. Well, it all depends on your opponent. And Topalov quickly tries to hit things, So making this one move threat, bishop takes f2 and grab the queen. Alright, so. And now there was this moment, this is Topalov's imprecision. He clearly could have played king g7. I mean, the white queen is still under this threat, right? So the queen has to go somewhere, and maybe white would lose a tempo. Because this check does not put the queen in the position to support the b-pawn. So therefore, king g7, of course, was superior. And actually, after king g7, in my opinion, black's position is bad, it's worse, but it's not lost. And if I had to guess, probably he has as many chances to save the game as white to win the game. But after the incorrect move, now the pawn gets to b7. Alright, Topalov doesn't give up, and he finds this sequence. So he finally hits this pawn and doesn't allow white to play this move queen g3, of course, because the pawn is pinned. So this is forced, and now a lot of moves has been played, but they're still not anywhere near move 60. The approaches to time control, I meant like the second, that's, or rather what Magnus Carlsen thought was the second time control. First time control was at move 40. They were given 2 hours and no increment. By the way, if you think of FIDE time control, so when they use the increment, 30-second increment from move 1, they always give less than 2 hours. That's usually 100 minutes. So whenever you see like 2 hours, then probably you're not going to get the increment. Alright. But what happens after move 40? Given another hour, but suddenly with the increment. Now, which is inconsistent? Well, as far as I can tell, most tournaments, FIDE tournaments, have the increment from move 1. What they call now classical time control, although there's nothing classical about it, because it's still played with digital clock and with increments, and which was not present, I don't know, 1950s, 60s or 70s, whatever. But they call it now the classical time control. Look at the YKNZ tournament. 40 in 2 hours, 20 in 1, and then Mind that. You're given 15 minutes to complete the game, plus the 30-second increment. That's what probably was still in Magnus's head, because, well, he plays White on Z all the time. Okay, we'll keep this in mind. So far, good moves. He protects the pawn. The queen came to e5. And if you just allow me to do one thing, I forgot to open my chess base with my analysis. So I might just want to do that quickly to get those games up, so I can take a look, and so I won't have to improvise and blunder pieces left and right, which I might still do, of course. But anyway, all right. Sorry for this brief interruption. And yeah, I'll be done real soon. Oops. More problems. Sorry about that. Anyway, so let me go back. I was gonna I was gonna show you what I looked at, but now I'm not exactly sure. Okay, I'll do it once again. Yeah, in this position. All right. So the queen went to e5. Yeah. Okay. This is good. Queen d3. That's move 50. Now, Black offers to take the game to opposite color bishop endgame. And he will survive that because White doesn't have pawn advantage on the king side. And one b7 pawn is not going to win the game. There are two possibilities for Black to make a draw in this endgame. One would be to allow the White king to make a long track to c8 and win the bishop and then exchange all the pawns, which is going to be possible, but not always. Another idea would be to just prevent the White king from getting to c8. For that, you just have to keep your king, say, somewhere close by, maybe on e7, to prevent the White king from going like this. So it seemed to me, since the White king is very far away, that Black is going to be able to take back and win king g5 and trade, and then run all the way back to e7 and make a draw. Carlsen knows this, so everything's good. So he's not going to make any silly mistake. Yeah, let me finish with this game, and then I'll answer the question from Windmill, how to handle losing streaks. Yeah. So anyway, let me finish with the story, because before I totally lost my train of thought. So Magnus plays it correctly. That actually this is about as good as a guy, to handle this situation, as Magnus Carlsen. He's very patient, and he has the right approach to technical endgames like this. So now he plays this move, and queen d4. Oh, Black wants to support the move h4. Here was the moment that actually went unnoticed. When Magnus played queen f3, he didn't really have to play queen f3. He had other moves that would prevent this idea of h4. I mean, if you dissect even the best endgames of Magnus Carlsen or Vladimir Kramnik and really look on every move, you will see that the opponents miss something. Like in this case, it is really hard to... I mean, this, and then a few moves later, that's going to be this moment, right? Okay, I keep on going. Bishop b8. He went bishop d1. Oh no, I think I already passed this. Hang on, 1 second. Let me go back. So the queen was on c3. Oh yeah, the queen was on e2 in this position. Oh. Sorry, of course here. Hey. Yeah, this position. h4 was possible. Or maybe maybe Magnus simply wasn't able to stop it. It's the only moment where Topalov could have actually traded that weakness and reduced the number of pawns. I think there would be... Oh no, he couldn't. Pardon me. No, this is a bad line. Alright, queen b2 check is there, followed by b8. Right, okay, so I take it back. Alright, so this was perfectly played. Now we can see maybe the next moment. Okay, so that comes right here. Ah, this was the moment. This was the moment to play h4. Yeah, if he trades off this pawn, then I don't think white can win. Well, what are tips for a 14-year-old starter? No, I assume since you're here on the Internet Chess Club, you're not really a beginner. Well, don't set the bar too low. Study the games of best players. Well, maintain your ICC membership and watch the Grandmaster instructional videos. Watch our broadcast and watch this. I mean, look at this situation. I will repeat it especially for you. Real explosive. Here is the thing, like, black can contain the pawn on b7. He has the two pieces can operate on the dark squares, the bishop and the queen. That will prevent white from physically pushing that pawn forward. The principle of two weaknesses, outlined by Aaron Nimzovich in his book My System, calls white to create a second weakness on the other side of the board to kind of stretch the defenses. The weakness is actually present. That's the h5 pawn. Now, if black manages to get rid of that weakness, then what can white do? I was thinking, alright, he can play this. Now, this would be a mistake. Maybe that's the reason why Topalov didn't play it. Because queen check, and then I queen on the next move. But, much better, however, is this move. Bishop to b8. Despite the open black king, the white queen is unable to give any checks. Now you may ask what's up with g4. Now g4 gives black counterplay, because now black can line up on this diagonal, threaten mate in one, and the h-pawn might be able to go forward. It's probably impossible to win. Alright, so Magnus got lucky a little bit. Veselin missed it. King h3, excellent move, excellent. Only 5 moves before that time control. Now Magnus plays extremely accurately. So he knows he wants to take the pawn on h5, but he doesn't want to give up f2. And he doesn't want to use his king to protect f2, because that would allow h4. Magnus's play illustrates to me that he was very much aware of this h4 idea. Yeah, you get a good advice over there. Excellent advice. So, we come into this critical point. Now, Topalov just waits. He was playing very quickly, hoping for Magnus to make a mistake on this approaches to... I mean, seriously, well, Topalov probably knew the time control, right? So he was maybe more conscious of what's going on with Carlsen's clock, rather than Carlsen himself. Carlsen thought he was getting extra 15 minutes. In fact, whatever Carlsen had on the clock was to the end of the game. There was sudden death. He already had the increment, 30-second increment. Technically speaking, white can play a good game here on the 30-second increment alone. But you need to be aware of that. Otherwise, something that happened to Magnus would happen to you. Now, and mistakes begin to creep in. Now, free pawn. I mean, I can't believe, that Magnus didn't see this. And then he gives the check and grabs the bishop. I think he would win the game easily here. if he did that. Okay, we can check out this line. Queen endgame now, right? So we need to do what? We need to centralize. What is there to centralize? So I play this. What checks do you got? I'm threatening to play b8. You don't have f1. If you do e6, I got this. Queens are off. You do h5, I assume. Then I got there. Still not that obvious, but somehow I have a feeling that Magnus would have brought the point home by playing like this. But of course, he didn't take. He played bishop d1. Now Topalov's playing f5, and he just cannot sit there on this bad position, so he wants some resolution one way or another. And f4 comes, and now Magnus takes, and Veselin took on f2. Now I am actually offering more detailed analysis in the PGN file that is going to be made available for download, so you guys can check all the variations and enjoy this endgame in its entirety. But let me get to the key point. Now, on move 60, Magnus gives this check, king comes to f7. Magnus had just under a minute on his clock when he played his 60th move. He looks at the clock, and I assume the 30 seconds is added, but not the 15 minutes. Some people said Magnus should have noticed that he didn't get time added to his clock, and he should have gone to the arbiter and asked what's going on. That was the opinion of Caruana. Well, Caruana also said that he wasn't sure himself what time control was used, but his first round game was rather a quick draw. But Fabiana said that if it went longer, he would have come to the arbiters and asked. No, maybe. Well, I've played with all different clocks, and the lack of standardized equipment, the lack of standardized time controls is really bothering me in modern chess. I understand that we have all sorts of different organizers and chess patrons, and well, they have the right, to organize tournaments the way they want to. But I think, tinkering with the rules of the game, time on the clock is one of the things, that we consider rules of the game, should not be allowed. I think it's just not helping anybody, making it difficult for chess players to adjust. Well, I know I've been through this in American tournaments for way too long, and I played all sorts of different time controls, but no, open tournaments, but for top players, well, I don't think they should be tinkering with time controls that much. Okay, we'll get to the second game, but anyway, so what happened here, you know the story. So Magnus sat there, decided to give himself a little bit of time. What was he looking at, was this check. Obviously, he could have played the check very quickly. But I can't blame Magnus for not playing it very quickly, because he acts exactly like an experienced chess player should. Upon making the time control, you have to slow down and spend a minute or two for your pulse to come to normal, your adrenaline, come down. And I know he was looking at all this, and the winning plan, actually, which I didn't see during the game, I mistakenly thought this position would be a draw, because I thought that the black king escapes somewhere over there, and I thought that white cannot win, because if he grabs the bishop, then he gets mated. And of course, if he takes, then the queen connects with the bishop. I was wrong, of course. White had a win, and the method there of winning is to force the king actually to stay on the king's side, and then you will see there is this very tricky check. Now, it's like 16 precise checks in a row, but when people say, oh, it's impossible to find, they're mistaken, because you play them one by one and the position appears kind of in front of you, and you find the next move in 30 seconds or even much faster. I think Magnus would have brought the point home. So now black has to avoid certain squares. There's like e5 is impossible. So eventually he's going to have to step on the light square, like in this situation. Once this happens, you know, white will give... okay, yeah, this is the line. White will give this checks, then that check, that one. So drives the king up. And now comes the critical moment here, that in this line, which of course computers show, but now I understand how it works. This check, g4 check, and now very important queen g6 check. Now look at this. The king is simply driven to this thing, v and the queen. Alright, 100%, you know, Magnus would have found it. Now, would that be a deserving win for Magnus? Yeah, because he won games like this in the past, and he will win more games like this in the future. Well, Topalov did what he could. Well, played some good moves, played also some bad moves. If it wasn't for this thing with the clock, you know, Magnus would have had his first win in the tournament. Now, was Magnus affected by this or not? Of course he was. Well, what people refer to as, in this case, emotional stability, I know, poker face, it's just a face. You know, well, deep down inside, there is no chess player who would not be affected by this. I mean, it's truly, you know, disheartening, you know, painful loss when you know you blame yourself, of course, for not knowing the time control, but still on the board you played moves good enough to win the game, or for sure not to lose. So Magnus very quickly he went for this interview, that thing, you know, and then he said, oh yeah, I blame myself. But then he said some things the organizers probably could have informed us better. And then the organizers, they kind of step up and they offered an apology. I don't know, well, I don't know if that apology makes anybody feel better. I mean, what the guy said, the organizer of the tournament, and he said that we could have done a better job informing players, and well, that I actually made this suggestion. I'm sure other people thought of that too. Print out time control big bold letters on every score sheet. Yeah, why not? Anyway, well, you cannot take the point away from Topalov, so that was the start. Oh yeah. Okay. The second game, and how Magnus was outplayed by Fabiano Caruana. No, listen to what Caruana said about this whole thing. He said, it seems like I win 1 out of 10 against the Berlin. Caruana is one of the few players who keep on trying. So he refuses to avoid the Berlin and tries very hard. Obviously, Fabiano wins more often than once out of 10, but percentage-wise, maybe he was accurate, because he also had some losses. Last 2 games, Magnus played the Berlin against Fabiano. First Fabiano won, but then Magnus won. So Fabiano cannot avoid losses, playing the white side of the Berlin. So therefore, I don't know what his winning percentage is, but I would say, yeah, maybe. If he gets somewhere between 55 and 60%, that this is no reason to stop playing against the Berlin, because, well, who says you're going to get more, you know, in other openings? Now, was Magnus due to lose in the Berlin? I wouldn't say so, but one thing I'll mention that, and I begin to partially answer that question, what do I do to break out of the slump, bad series? Now, it's too early to talk about the slump, right? You just lost a silly game. But you're affected by that, and you have to be honest to yourself. Now, you're probably not in your best mood, and your mind will be coming back to this. Even when you look at this and game, somewhere around move 25, and you think, okay, I can do this, this, and that, and it's a draw. Yeah. Well, now, what next comes to your mind? Okay, I make a draw now, what am I going to have? Half a point after 2 rounds. That stinks. Yeah, well, why? Oh, because of that, I lost yesterday. And I mean, to put it different words, if Magnus won that game against Topalov, he would have been in much better shape, normal shape for himself. And he would play his Berlin like he played against Caruana before. And that would be probably the right choice of opening. I'm not sure it was the right choice of opening for this situation. Simply because, while Black does get a win here and there in the Berlin, still it's the opening to make a draw. And the draw now in this situation, I don't think was the... Magnus thought it would be a good result for him. Or good maybe, but not great. Now, where I'm from, you mean like, you can't recognize accents? I mean, Boris and Natasha, Yakov Smirnov, or any villain, in modern American movie, it's the Russian accent, dude. So I'm from Russia. Yeah. Okay, so let's go quickly, through all this. I don't want to go into the Berlin defense theory. Anyway, so this h6, it's alright. It's actually connected with this plan with knight e7. No. I mean, ask Irina Crash to say this. Maybe she'll say it better than I do. Now, the knight goes to e7. That's Zoltan Almashi, a Hungarian grandmaster. I mean, everybody credits Kramnik with bringing back to Berlin. Of course, he did it against Kasparov. But Almash has been playing this also for a long time. Now, Magnus already played this against Caruana. Caruana went bishop f4. And, yeah, in one of their games. For this one, Fabiana goes to this b3, and b3 is an old plan. This is not an old, and it's not better than bishop f4, not at all. It's just a different move. I guess Caruana realized by now that there is really no way to crush the Berlin, and he just plays it like any other position. He plays this or that and tries to surprise his opponent. And maybe his opponent himself would not play perfect moves all the time. Yeah, I could actually be from England. If I were a Russian oligarch, I probably would have bought, some kind of mansion, like there, for 10 million pounds, and then, I mean, maybe I would hire a voice coach to teach me how to speak proper. Okay, but hey, I'm just a chess guy, so you're gonna have to tolerate me. Anyway, so this b3, and now, I mean, I don't know. So Magnus, look at this. Like, I mean, this is a rare move. It had been played before, but the bishop's headed to h7, and it's a very unusual position for the bishop in the Berlin. Now, why would Magnus, do this? Because he probably, somewhere deep down inside, he was hoping to turn things around in the very next game. And beat Caruana, which he had done many times, and the last 2 times he had the black pieces, he actually beat Fabiana. So he improved the record, but it's still not overwhelming record. It's not like what he has against Nakamura. But still, he goes bishop f5. This move shows that Magnus wants more out of this game than the opening can offer, realistically. Of course, I'm, well, yeah, distinguished. I have this kind of like, iron, vocal cords. Well, and I can speak forever. Usually I just never lose my voice. Now, here is the thing with the bishop on h7. Think about, white is gonna push everything forward. And then normally you have this bishop to kind of fight against the pawn chain and maybe undermine it with h5. You're not gonna be able to do this. So anyway, but the position is fine. And Fabiano played very quickly. He said after the game in his interview that I just happened to look at the stuff, bishop f5, and maybe just unfortunate choice from Magnus. So he was comfortable. Melik chose to live in the US over Russia because he knows US is better than Russia at chess. Now they're better, yeah, but when Melik came here, I don't think that was the case. Yeah, Melik Hachian, of course. Now, this is interesting. So Magnus is looking for counterplay and jumps with the knight. It kind of forces Fabiano to put this main plan with g4 and f4 on hold, and he puts his knight over there. And now, to this move. A lot of people said, oh, this is the first sign that Magnus was affected by result of the previous game because he played this artificial looking move. And why he played that when he had perfectly normal alternative in knight or bishop e7. I'm actually not sure, that bishop e7 was perfectly acceptable. Maybe it was. But there is one line. So that obviously white is always looks to play e6. And now you have this X-ray attack against g7. The regular way to deal with this pressure is to oppose the bishops, right? But now white has knight h5. Once again, Magnus with 1 point from the previous round, feeling comfortable in the tournament situation, would probably shrug it off and say, whatever, what's that knight h5? I just do this. Or king e7, yeah, I'll just do king e7. Indeed, surprisingly, damage to black's position is not that extensive. The pawn on e6 looks very good, but what about this jump knight d3? White cannot even use effectively the e-file because of knight d3. So most likely white will take, and then black takes. Oh well, alright. I mean, the pawns, but I mean, white's advantage is small, normal. Yeah, but to admit that you partying with your bishop pair and kind of throwing away whatever little winning chances you ever had, it was too much for Magnus. Now, he plays this move. It's actually not a bad move. Or at least I don't think it's so bad. Overprotected g7 pawn. Yeah, the criticism came to this previous move, knight a6. Choices. Yeah, you can do this, but, well, white is already comfortable because he's able to put the knight on f5, leaving black with unpleasant choice. Either you take, and then white gets the pawn on f5. Or you play, what, g6? No, this is terrible. You're not going to bury your bishop like this. I don't know. Probably the choice of this whole line with bishop h7, and maybe the choice of the entire opening. Now, Dr. Tarash famously said, well, in bad positions, mistakes come naturally. That is true. Also, in the bad psychological situations, now you make mistakes even without realizing it. One sign of a good form is not that you never make mistakes. You do. But when you do, you kind of realize that, oh man, I missed that. Oh, maybe I could have done that. So you're like more alert. But when you get into this kind of a state when you're shaken up and, I don't know, kind of in a haze, then you play a series of moves without realizing that the moves were bad. And then you like wake up and, how did I get up? How did I end up in such a bad position? Okay. Knight a6. So now Magnus repositions his knight. He wants to control the a6 square. Now comes critical moment. Okay, check. Now, Fabiano is kind of feeling it, so he's trying to use some tactics and plays this move, bishop a3. Now, does he have a threat? Oh, seriously? I mean, this knight on c5. No, it's under attack, but it's protected by the bishop. The rook on g8 protects the pawn, so there is no like deflection of the bishop and then loss of the g7 pawn. What is actually white threatening in this position? Suppose black just plays the move b6. Alright, it's routinely played. Here maybe I'm not gonna go king b7 because of the invasion to the 8th rank, but what if I do play this move? What exactly is white doing? His knights are beautifully positioned, but the knights are in the way of the f-pawn. Like breakthroughs like this. There is always a way of meeting this kind of stuff. Now you can take on e6. Yeah, that doesn't work. Now, is black going to capture on f5? No, probably not. Probably not yet, but white still has to prove his advantage. I've looked at some things. I even found some funny lines. Like if here, this is a nice tactical move, don't you think? I'm threatening to take this knight with check, and then if you take, I grab that. The dark square bishop safely controls e7, and I don't think black in such a bad way. I mean, in the Berlin, you can get in a somewhat unpleasant situation. But the position has a lot of... I mean, the inner structure, is pretty sturdy, and it takes a lot to bring it down. And little unpleasant moments that you cannot develop this bishop and your rook's passive, that's not anything special for a Berlin player. And Carlsen is a Berlin player. He played it many times and with great degree of success. I think he was not in a good psychological state for this particular thing, in this particular game. Look what he did. He played this move, so he wanted some kind of tactical resolution. And Caruana provided it by playing very accurately. Now mate is threatening, so you must take over there. Why did I say? Because of this. If you do this, incredible shot, bishop e7. Incredible move, threatening mate. And now that's the only move, because you can't take in fear of losing your rook. And now the white rook gets there, and then... During the game I mistakenly thought that white would take with the rook and then collect some pawns and convert an opposite cover. Bishop endgame. Wrong. White would have played this. Move that pawn forward and force black to part with the bishop for it. Easy technical win, up a piece. So, forced to do this and now that. Last moment I want to mention in this game. Alright. Magnus chose a bad opening. Magnus played, well, the opening which may have been bad for this situation. Magnus played a suspicious line with the bishop h7 for no reason at all. Got little unlucky because Caruana was prepared and answered very quickly with his prepared plan. And Magnus didn't show what every Berlin player has to show, which is good strong nerves, and he forced the issue by playing knight e6 when he wasn't forced to. Yet, even now, maybe he can save the game. But he had to stop and think. He had 22 minutes on his clock. Now, things have gone real bad, but there was still a way of fighting. First, look at the game continuation. He went bishop f8. Instantly, Caruana plays e6. Because you can see, of course, that knight h5 is impossible. Bishop will take the knight and the pawn is pinned. Obviously. Okay, this is good. So he plays bishop f8 and Caruana answers with prepared move e6. Now, there is no time to do anything but to take on e6. You don't have time to capture the knights. Or rather, he takes on f5. And now knight takes. And the knight escapes. The knight escapes here. Alright, so white lost his extra pawn back, but in return, he left black with the dark square bishop that has no targets whatsoever on the queen side. He's got full control of the e4 square, split pawns over there, and most importantly, maybe, black is in this situation when his king is not participating in the defense, because it's cut off. And the only way to bring it is to trade rooks. But trading rooks will probably lose the game hopelessly at bad bishop against good knight. Now, the rest of the game you can see. Well, it was impossible to do anything. I was doing live work with Grandmaster Ron Hanley. Well, we decided once this position was reached, even before it was reached, when we saw this variation, that that's going to be it. Well, Caruana is going to bring it home, which he did. Now, where is the promised improvement? Okay, we're going to have to go back. Bishop f8 was not forced. I know. You wanna attack this knight and, force the issue. Well, we already saw it 2 moves ago, if knight s6. But importantly, there was the last chance to trade off that bad pawn. Now, as white would probably go king g2 or whatever, doesn't matter. You'll see the difference. And this, and this, and that. Okay, granted, I cannot take on g4 on account of king f3 followed by e7. I'm not trying to do this. But look at the difference. Black has gotten rid of this terribly bad pawn on h6 and also took the white h-pawn off the board. And now the front is kind of narrower and his king is a little closer over there. Seems like the king is closer to action. Moreover, the knight has to protect the pawn on g4. Then you can place your bishop actively on c5. No, king g3. Alright, there are no threats so far. If white wants to get the rook involved, then the king might be able to come in. The king and pawn, no, well, there is always check. Yeah, white's much better. Maybe Caruana would have won it, but much greater drawing chances. Magnus didn't look and he didn't play h5. He banged this move bishop f8 almost instantaneously. Now, okay, this is how it begins. First of all, you lose when you play well. You lose because of whatever. You touched the wrong piece, your clock malfunctioned, you didn't know the time control, power went out, that whatever happened to you, I don't know. So you lose undeservingly. And then you tell yourself, yeah, this was the fluke loss, I'm gonna get it back, and then you come out and you tell yourself, oh, I played well yesterday and I'm gonna play well today, but your inner balance has been upset. The mate threat. Interesting. That's right. Thank you. Yeah, obviously he was missing some variations, some things, his brain was not working perfectly. In fact, you're not yourself. You can't deny it. Well, I mean, you can show your good face on Norwegian TV and act like, I'm a big man and I can handle, anything. But in fact, maybe you can, but you're not handling anything. Because refusing to admit the problem precludes you from handling it. The problem was there. Alright. Now let's go to the classics, to some sources, and hear what experienced players of the past had to say about this. Petrosian famously said, whenever you lose or win the game, it upsets your equilibrium. It's always better to play a next game to a draw. I know it's a cynical kind of thing, we're not supposed to admit we're playing for a draw. But there is something to it. A draw would be a good result for Magnus. And that making a draw after any loss, be it deserving, undeserving, or whatever, it's a big step forward. Because you stop the bleeding. Now, I don't think Magnus fully realized that. I think Magnus was mainly thinking that okay, well, wouldn't that be great, you know, if I beat Caruana again with the black pieces, I'm back in the tournament, and then I can, you know, I can go out on this TV, you know, and then just tell them how brilliantly I won the game. No, those things are not helping. So, okay, this is, I think, what happened. Alright. How are we doing, guys? More questions? I'll move on to the next game. Now, his lost first 2 games. It happened to him on Bilbao, 2010. Yeah, he was, maybe Carlsen was already the best player in the world in 2010. Entirely possible. He ended up not winning that tournament in Bilbao. It was a short tournament. I think he took either 2nd or 3rd place. It was a very short, 4 players. Yeah, 2 losses in a row at the Shamkir First Gashimov Memorial, not this year, but in 2014. Came in the middle of the tournament, he came back and won 2 games, got it back, and won the tournament with the +3 overall score. It's not like Magnus never lost, but here we have this situation. Home crowd. Home crowd, okay? Now, they're cheering you on, you know, like, well, I don't know, I hear it time and again, you know, I read it many places, accounts of many great players that they hated to play in their hometown. Somehow, it was not productive, it was kind of counterproductive, and additional pressure. And look at Magnus's track record, playing in Norway. This is the 3rd edition of Norway Chess, right? First 2, Magnus didn't do so badly. I think he finished 2nd both times. But still, 2nd. To the Russian guy, Sergei Karyakin. Okay, at least you would say he played well, it just happened. Karyakin started one of the tournaments winning 4 games in a row. Well, Magnus actually beat Karyakin head to head. It just wasn't enough. Oh, you missed about 1 hour of this Turlock. You know, you missed 1 hour of great talk and great games. We dissecting the games of Magnus Carlsen. Hey, but I'll stick around, you know, I'm in no hurry. I can guarantee you another 40 minutes of this. You know, I'm doing okay. Yeah. So anyway, returning to this. So Magnus, alright. You can say he played okay, but he failed to win those tournaments. Karyakin won them. Alright, Magnus did not exactly embarrass himself, but still kinda underperformed. Maybe. But then came this Olympiad in Tromsø. Magnus was just, I mean, horrible shape there. He lost a lot of rating points, and I think he got lucky. You know, at least one game I recall that he won, which he was losing. He played very poorly in that Olympiad. Too much of media attention. Well, I understand that he's a national hero in Norway and all that, but I mean, chess requires concentration. There was always this issue, you know, reporters in the locker room, you know, and then for anybody who follows American sports, and I used to follow, now I follow baseball only. I mean, always been kind of, you read about various controversies there. But one thing, you know, that never happens. I mean, no one is allowed in the clubhouse before the game, and then the game is in progress. After the game, yeah. But routinely, you can see a guy, you know, who just had some poor performance there and just walks away and refuses to talk to a journalist. Now, do they fine these people? No, they shouldn't. A players' union will make sure that it doesn't happen. Yeah, you may be in a bad mood. And this kind of baiting, you know, what's the point of... Okay, I give you one baseball story. I don't know if there are any Cleveland Indians fans. Well, that the great team they had in the second half of the 1990s. And Albert Bell, they had the slugger. You know, so he was known for his temper. So he walks off the field, you know, after a playoff loss. I think it was in 1997 playoffs. And there is this female reporter that kind of runs to him with the microphone, the cameraman trailing, and says, Albert, you went 0 for 4 today and left 7 men on base. How do you feel about it? Oh, well. He did say some words that were not suited for radio or TV. It was one of the last cases. After that, everything comes in tape delay. So any sporting event you watch on American television runs in some delay. Seconds, but there is delay. Happens. Magnus, I don't know. I'm just thinking, okay, he showed up there and after the first game and then after the second game, but I mean, it's just hard on him, right? I mean, I understand everybody's doing their job, and you don't want to breach any contracts, and Magnus is well supported and given a lot of endorsements and all that, but there are some situations where Bobby Fischer doesn't show up for the game, but that's extreme. Or whatever. Garry Kasparov doesn't get out of bed until 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I mean, all this, sometimes you just need to let it out of your system, like, I don't know. Take your baseball bat, to the air conditioner or to the unknown boombox playing salsa music. You just have to, I don't know. I don't think that Magnus is given this outlet. Well, in some previous tournaments, I think when he lost 2 games in Azerbaijan, he went to play soccer, his favorite sport, and, well, that's a good idea. I don't know. Well, as we speak now, I don't know what Magnus is doing, or what he was doing today. Well, for his sake, I hope, that he broke the routine and did some things that help him to relax. It's not scientific. Obviously, my explanations are not scientific. I'm not a scientist. Science is only one part of chess and, pertains to certain positions. But chess we're talking about chess being sport, and this psychology is always there. It's always been in chess. I mean, all sports teams, they employ psychologists. That's just how it is. I mean, all these things, I mean, you may be wrong, obviously it's guesswork. He probably has the chess world's best support team. Your team is judged by your performance, or basically now. When things are going very well and you're a Magnus Carlsen, I can be his coach. And I would get credit, for being one of the best coaches in the world, because my man Carlsen just beats the crap out of everybody. Right. But then things turn sour a little bit. And then what? Where are these people? What can they do? I mean, okay, let me go out on a limb and tell you, you cannot have your family member, like it's managing your affairs. I know that Carlsen has, a manager, this guy, Agdestein, not the chess player Agdestein, different guy. And, okay, whatever, I'm sure there are a lot of people handling all this stuff, but his dad is always there, obviously. So his dad is obviously a very important person. And it's like, but you can't, like, this is the moment maybe when you have a talk with your team and tell them, look, I don't care what it takes, I don't care how much money it's going to cost, like, I'm not showing up, for this or that, tomorrow. I need to be in my own world and I need to be left alone. You guys, that's what I'm paying you big bucks for. You go out there and you explain. Tell them that whatever, that I committed suicide. Tell them, that whatever, so I'm like unconscious on drugs or whatever. Just, it's your job, Go out there, embarrass yourself, all you want. I'm simply not showing up. Now, I don't know, once again, I'm guessing. Maybe Magnus doesn't need this. But the track record in this tournament so far doesn't show that he can break out of the slump on his own. Let's look at the next game. So he plays Giri. Now, Giri is a bad opponent for this situation. Giri has a rather nasty habit, of saying things on Twitter. I don't think it... I think that's his preferred way, but I mean, that's new generation anyway. All these little nasty remarks over there. And he said, and it's always kind of in a semi-joking way, so if you kind of corner him and say, do you really mean it? So I said, I was just joking. Like what happened with this guy Jabava during the press conference. But anyway, so Giri says, I don't feel sorry for Magnus Carlsen. He's too good to, for us to feel sorry for him. It's an interesting statement. On the one hand, of course, Magnus is too good, but, you don't feel sorry for him. We all chess players, things happen to us. You're going to lose some games in a row, Giri, one day. Do you want people not to feel sorry for you because you're the great Anish Giri? I don't know. Then he said, Magnus is going to lose another game. Okay, it's a different role from saying, oh, I'm going to beat Magnus tomorrow. But still, these remarks, the best way probably, is to ignore this, right? If he bounced back directly, okay, this is the thing, we're talking about these two things. We're talking about if I would be totally off base, in this case, but we still have to start with the facts. Otherwise, our discussion will go totally in the hypothetical territory. Cybert. Well, the fact of the matter is that Magnus did not break out of the slump, and I will show you the rest of the games. I got time now. Now, all 4 games, he's mired into this thing. So therefore, then I can kind of speculate that maybe if he could have done this or that, would that be worse? What worse? It's like Taimanov losing to Fischer 6-0. There was this thing, and then some people were discussing this. It was just like yesterday, back in 1971. I was a little kid, then, but later, all the talks, they relate to me. Because it was really a story. How can one of the great Soviet grandmasters lose a match by not scoring a single draw? So 6-0, Fischer beats Taimanov. Now, a talk was like what he could have done, but clearly, if Taimanov stood on his head, all the time, he still would not have done worse, right? He scored 0 points. Almost like anything you could have tried, could have been beneficial maybe, but could not have been harmful. Aliens manipulated Carlsen's mind. Well, we're not saying that yet. Okay, now, when is the moment when we will say that Magnus's brain has been stolen by the aliens? I would say he loses 2 more. Well, and one of them to Nakamura. If he loses to Grishuk and then to Nakamura, and he is half point out of 6, then I will officially state that Magnus Carlsen is being body snatched. And it's just some kind of reptilian thing, like inside Magnus's body that happens to be a very bad chess player. Magnus said nasty stuff about Giri during the last tournament, but what goes around comes around, that this is, well, I think maybe it's part of kind of it probably existed always, as much as I know about chess history, there have always been nasty remarks and accusations and whatnot. It's not like Giri and Magnus invented that. But this is maybe the moment, when wrong moment for Magnus to play Giri. So he gets this position. Now, Giri played, I don't know, he gave up a pawn out of the opening. Interesting decision, maybe a good practical decision. Also, Giri is maturing as a chess player. So I noticed that he makes better and better decisions, not only in terms of calculation and purely chess stuff, as far as sending the game into one direction or another. So I think Giri is on the right track with that. So he gave a pawn to kind of like just to avoid the typical Magnus squeeze. But the squeeze is there, of course, the pawn on b5, extra pawn. But some kind of blockade there on the dark squares, and it's hard for Magnus to tangle his pieces and get the knight around and maybe break this blockade by bringing the knight to c4. I don't know if it was possible against some normal play from black. I don't know, black could get his knight back from h5, maybe aim it towards c5 this way. But for whatever reason, Anish plays this move f5. Well, there could be two explanations for this. Explanation number one, he mistakenly thought it was good for him, and it cannot be good, it's bad for black. Explanation number two, he figured out, okay, Magnus is very shaky, and I'm gonna strike, while it's hot, and just before the time control, and I'll confuse Magnus. Now, if so, then it's a very brave decision. Gamble, but gamble paid off, and almost paid off to the max. Now, Magnus, who has about, what do I say? Okay, let me open my analysis. I always have analysis, people. I always come prepared. Magnus had to play 6 moves, 7 moves. So he takes. Now, knight f4. He plays this move, good move, saves his bishop, protects the pawn on d5. Now, the pawn on d5 is attacked twice, but no, in itself, losing this pawn is no longer a tragedy for white, because he's getting to the black king. And the game is becoming tactical, and the white pieces, the two rooks on e5 and a knight on f3, that seemed passive while the position was closed, actually now, well, they're not that far off the action is, they're not that far away, maybe can get to the king. So this move is played, now switching the point of attack to b5. Now, well, if black had a better king, maybe. If you have this pawn and move it back to g7, I would agree. Are we nerds? I don't know. I mean, nobody ever called me a nerd. That would be something new. I've been called all things under the sun. But a nerd? Interesting. I have to sit on this a little bit and kind of wrap my mind around it. Anyway, capture is good. How many moves before the time control? 4. 4. Alright. I mean, seriously, if you just take first look at this position without knowing what happened before or after or during, you look at this position, white is 2 pawns ahead. Yeah, maybe he can lose one of them, maybe 2, but there is also that king on g8. The white king is totally safe. And this is Magnus Carlsen with the white pieces. I mean, seriously, what do you expect here? I mean, this has to be brought home. How? Well, the black pieces are all on the queen side, except for the knight on f4. You simply overpower him. You have more pieces there. Now, if you don't trust me, because I'm not really known to be a fearsome attacker and all that, although obviously I did have my share of successful attacks, I asked my good friend Grandmaster Alexander Shabalov, who basically has been plying his trade of checkmating people, for already 20 plus years. 23 years in the United States. And some years before that. No, TAL student. You know those Latvians. They always know a thing or two about how to attack the king. So he says, don't do anything special. Knight h4. And the rook to g3. Oh boy. Okay. Now, if black bails out to the endgame, kind of endgame he bails out to. He's gonna be down 2 pawns. He's gonna lose that knight, the pawn on d6 is gonna come under attack, it's gonna be lost. So basically he should resign right here. Down 2 pawns you cannot save any endgame, particularly with the passers. Alright, so black, whose king is in danger, is supposed to keep the queens on the board, so he will take with the rook on b5. Fair enough. In this case, Maybe a quiet move over here, and then keeps an attack, and now queen to d1. Now, once the queen appears over there, I mean, there is nothing to analyze here. Black is totally, hopelessly lost in this position. He's down a pawn, about to lose the pawn on g6, about to lose his king. He has no trace of counterplay here, not even a ghost of a chance. How bad was Magnus's clock situation? It wasn't really so bad. He had more than 10 minutes. There you go. Magnus's move. Bishop takes g6. Alright, okay, I absolutely agree with you. If we ask your computer, then bishop takes g6 will be given higher evaluation than knight h4. But it doesn't matter by which margin you win your chess games, because in the end, in the final analysis, there is 3 possible outcomes of a chess game, which are represented as 1, 1/2, and 0. Alright, nobody's gonna care, how many points up you were in the computer evaluation. 200 or 3 or whatever. The problem with this move is that all Magnus saw was obviously this, and which is very nice. You move the queen over there to attacking position immediately, and you easily overwhelm this knight because you got all this. Knight moves to g6 and h4 to f5 and the rook, you name it. It's understandable. However, this move was played, and continuing with the same logic, Magnus played queen e4 very, very quickly. And here is the moment when, according to our computer experts, and resident experts now in every household, everywhere in the world, because, I don't know, well, there are free analysis engines, and even the ones that you pay money for are not really that expensive. Here is everybody, like, everyone's computer engine lit up like a Christmas tree. Bishop f7, Magnus wins. I mean, yeah. But can you tell me why? I mean, what's the purpose of bishop f7? Every move in chess, has to have some kind of logical explanation, even the most outrageous ones. I can see that what they're trying to do is they're trying to get the queen over to h7. So that's the queen access to the king side. And you basically give your bishop away just to clear out this diagonal. The diagonal would reach h7. But you have to back it up by calculations. You have to look at number of things. You have to look, for example, at rook g8. Now, okay, here it works. It actually does work. In this line, for example. You can step to the e file because you just grab the knight. Or maybe, yeah, better to grab the knight, eliminate the threat to the g2 pawn, and then you break through, crash through by taking on e5. Okay, would Magnus in best shape play queen e4 here? My answer to this is, or play bishop f7 here. My answer to this is no. And surprisingly, it's not because Magnus cannot find moves like this. Calculating is another story, and finding, bringing your mind, to this, to the necessity of giving up your bishop, putting your bishop on empty square to be given away. It's not about this. Magnus can attack. Magnus can do anything. This would not have happened if Magnus was in good shape, simply because that this position would not have occurred on the board. There is no way Magnus Carlsen in good form plays bishop takes g6, because he would look ahead and think, gee, why am I doing this? Why am I playing bishop takes g6? He can capture on b5 and what? So this impulsive move, bishop takes g6, that Magnus made because he really wanted to win so much. It It was a winning move, but not the Magnus's winning move. Magnus's winning move would be knight h4. To ask Magnus to play... okay, so I'm going back now. What am I doing? Okay. He played queen e4. To ask Magnus to play bishop f7, yeah, you can, but I don't know. Maybe if he stopped, he had 10 minutes. For what? 2 moves? 3 moves. If he stopped and thought, what am I doing? What am I doing? It's slipping away. Queen e4 is not good because queen e4 obviously came rook f8. Now the white queen cannot get anywhere. And the white queen is going to get hit by bishop takes d5. You're going to lose that pawn and you're going to have to pull back with your queen. And now a bishop on g6 is nothing but a liability. It's actually a piece that's under attack. If Magnus thought that my position may not be so great and queen e4 is going to be answered with rook f8, then perhaps, he could have forced himself to use the rest of his remaining time and to find bishop f7. He only did it after rook f8. Now, knight takes e5. This is totally, wild shot. I mean, this move, once again, evaluation-wise, it doesn't change anything because the position after extensive computer analysis is already about equal. And knight takes e5 doesn't lose the game. But the point of time I'm saying, that Magnus had no way of knowing if this move gonna win the game, draw the game, or lose the game. He simply lashed out. I think this was the moment when his nerves, really just gave way. Once he realized that he blown an easily winning position, and probably in last 2 moves, he simply lashed out. Now, he got his rook to g3, but rook takes d5. Now, well, give Giri credit. Well, he had time, but he kept his cool. And actually, throughout this whole game, I had a feeling that, maybe with the exception of move f5, but I'm willing to think that Giri just gambled. I think Giri was totally in control of his emotions, and I'm actually very impressed with Giri in this tournament. So black just ignores all the discover check, double checks, and in the meantime, black surprisingly has all his pieces working. Rooks are working, that bishop is waiting for a chance to hit the queen. There may be some kind of latent attack against f2 because you have these pieces combining. It's not clear who's attacking who. Poor Magnus sat here for 20 minutes. He found the best move. Well, he didn't have to growl for a draw because he was able to get the last pawn. He took on b7 and even gave some token effort trying to win the game with 3 pawns against the knight, but of course the position was drawn, and that was the only half point Magnus has scored. Can't really think that he's happy with the outcome of this game. He had a game won against the kid, who's been bothering him with all this, snide little remarks. The kid that he never actually beat in a long-time control game. Last time they played, Giri had white and quickly took the game to a draw out of the opening, and Magnus was unhappy, but he said, when the guy plays for a draw, kinda leaving himself with a chance to say, okay, I'm gonna be white one day and then we will see. And okay, so he had the white pieces in a situation when he needed to win the most, and he had it right there and let it slip away. Alright. This was not a Wednesday game. This game was played Thursday. No, guys, this was played Thursday. Now, yesterday's game. Alright, I'm gonna go slightly over, but this show is originally scheduled for 90 minutes, but now I have the best participation so far, and I guess I hit on the right topic here, and I'm glad, well, more comments. Uh, yeah. What's the tournament? This is Norway Chess, which is the third edition of that Norway tournament. It's held not in Oslo, but in the coastal city of Stavanger, rather than what they call Stavanger region. It's on the west coast of Norway, an important port for the North Sea trade. And so this is the third edition, but this year, for the first time, this tournament is part of new Golden Grand, whatever the G stands for, chess tour, kind of promoted by Garry Kasparov. So we're going to have 2 more tournaments this year. The tournaments that are traditional tournaments, the Sinkfield Cup in St. Louis, Missouri, in late August, and then in December, London Chess Classic. Well, how do you get the PJN? The PJN I will make it available for, we will make it available for download. Now the recording of this show is being made, so people will be able to find it in archive, and also there's going to be a PJN file, which I'm using right now. But I mean, all questions of how to get to stuff from the archive, they're not to me. Talk to some administrators on ICC, email them, whatnot. Figure it out on your own, guys. I'll do my part. Okay, now comes the, I don't know whose nemesis. Well, Carlsen beat Anand twice in World Championship matches. And I don't think it hurt Anand that much, strangely. I think, once again, maybe I'm guessing, but I know Anand a little bit, and he's not the kind of guy who cannot handle losing. I mean, his view of the world allows room for losing. He just wants to be happy with his effort. And the first match, indeed, I think he was sad, that he didn't play well. And that's why he was even contemplating not to play in the candidates tournament. But he came back and played it, and surprisingly, I mean, I gave him no chance to win the candidates tournament, but Anand did, and got to play Magnus again. And the second time around, he gave much better effort. And at some moment you just have to realize the guy is younger than you, and there is really no shame in losing to a guy who's 21 years younger than you and higher rated and beats up everybody else. I think if it's easier for Anand. For example, if he lost to Kramnik, now, say if there would be no Magnus Carlsen and maybe Kramnik would be there. And if Anand lost to Kramnik, maybe he would feel, well, it's not good, because before that I beat him and we played for 20 plus years. But anyway, it's just my opinion. So that's why I think that Anand recovered so nicely after losing the second match, and now he plays about as well as he played in his later period. Probably Anand's peak form is still 2007, 2000. When did he play Kramnik? I don't remember. That was Anand at his best. But probably he cannot get back there, but he's playing well, and he's got the rating to back it up. So anyway, once again, Magnus is opening chess. I asked Grandmaster Shabalov, what's going on in this game? We actually talked about it, and Shaba says, I understand why he played the Breyer. I mean, it's just difficult, system is difficult to play, and I go, Shaba, he played it before many times. Said, yeah, but when you're in good mood, in a good tournament situation, this position looks acceptable. But when you half point out of 3 and everybody's looking at you, when is this guy going to win a game or ever? This position is not acceptable. And I'm like, okay, interesting. Do I think Vishy will enter the candidates this year? Yes, I think he's going to play. There's absolutely no reason for him, because before the previous candidates, it wasn't only the match he lost to Magnus. He didn't have any tournament success for 2 or 3 years. He was making a lot of draws, and then it just simply didn't look like he was able to play. Now he's much more relaxed, and things kind of came back to him. It happens, actually. Well, there are some good moments. Well, people say, for example, oh, look at Smyslov. He played the final candidates match at the age of 63, only lost to Kasparov. Well, people forgetting that 10, if not 15 years prior to this match, Smyslov had absolutely no good results in any tournaments anywhere. I mean, he was okay, but he was always making a lot of draws and sitting there in the middle of the tournament table, in strong tournaments. But then suddenly everything kind of clicked and came together. Of course, credit goes to Smyslov. Yeah, we're all over the place, people, Well, I'm in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, of all places. That's my home. That's the wall, and the Dream Theater poster and the chessboard behind me. Yeah. Happy to be home. Anyway, what I was saying. Alright, so this position. And there are different variations of the Briar. And this one, actually, Carlsen was not really getting into this kind of position. He had his pawn sitting on... There was more tension. His pawn was sitting on c6. Now, this one with the close center, I don't think Magnus had a whole lot of experience. And as Shabalov pointed out, even if you do, this is just not the kind of position to play when you only have half a point after 3 games. Shabalov said, maybe Carlsen's opening repertoire for black seemed adequate against e4, he meant. Well, when things are going okay for him, but, well, now he's in this mini crisis, and he doesn't have the backup opening to kind of to fall back to. Now, in the beginning of the show, I was asked, how do I break out of the slumps? 2 things. First of all, you have to stop the bleeding. I believe that Petrosian was right, and as much as you want to take it all back and win 5 games in a row, you're better off making a draw. Good, solid game and make a draw. Now, then you ask me what happens if after that draw you get in another losing streak. Yeah, that happened to me. Once or twice. Yeah, then it means that you had to play 2 draws in a row. Now, I'm not joking, actually. Another thing is, when you're in this difficult psychological situation, you should not leave yourself any time during the game to reflect, why this and why that. You have to keep your mind busy. You just have to attend to matters in hand. Therefore, I prefer to have games with higher tactical content, so I have to sit there and calculate variations. When you sit there and calculate variations, you have no time to feel sorry for yourself. You have no time to think what if, and why, and Topalov, and, whoever. Now, Magnus made a mistake by choosing the opening where he simply cannot occupy his mind. There is not enough chess things there on the board. You're not a master, so you cannot comment. Who says this? I don't know. You can comment. Anybody can comment. I mean, seriously, nobody is gonna, I don't know, object, to any to comments from anybody as long as they're to the point. And I don't know. I'm not the one who sets the parameters of this discussion, So, I mean, you have to take your chances as far as the words you use and the subject you choose. But I mean, please be my guest. Talk. Even chances, well, I don't know. Anyway, so this is the first thing, okay, that this move usually is not played. No, first thing that black probably should do, and it does it most of the time, is not to allow the queen to come to d2. So you have to chase the bishop away from g5 while you can. A pin cannot be maintained, because then the bishop is trapped. So therefore the bishop would come to e3, and okay, extra long show today. Where's my analysis? Analysis of the last game. What am I doing? Oh yeah, finally I got it. h6, bishop e3. Yeah, knight h7. Now, this is very typical, and this pawn goes to h5. Now, look, control this squares for this knight, so white is unable to attack. It's not so easy. And this knight could possibly sit on d7, because you anticipate white moving this knight away, going for f4. You might need the other knight to occupy e5. A difficulty in playing this position, that you're not really in control of events. You can only read and react to what white does. But some people do it extremely well, and normally I would say Carlsen should be okay playing positions like this. Albeit I would mention that he really didn't have a whole lot of experience. Anand has tons of experience playing these positions. I'm sure he misses the structures after the steady diet of the Berlins and maybe the Marshalls. I mean, every e4 player, and Vishy has been a career e4 player, loves this kind of positions. Alright, Magnus ignored it and played this. Now, second thing. Now, why he gave up the a-file? He wanted to move the bishop to c8 for defensive purposes. Okay. Now, Vishy goes the standard plan, and now... Seriously, you're supposed to unpin here, and you're supposed to take on g4. Now, this gives white the h-file, but the h-file is not so... It's not so easy to checkmate on the h-file, but in the meantime... Now, black trades off a pair of knights, which somewhat relieves his position. And then maybe he goes for this knight c5, bishop c8. I don't know which move to play here. But I mean, slightly worse, but according to Shabalov, still nothing special. Now, this... Dangerous to put the king to f8. The f5 was about to be open. So ended up parting with the bishop. Now, Magnus said after the game, I don't know what to say, I just played badly, and my position was bad, and I continued playing badly. It's an interesting statement, actually. He didn't specify when his position became bad. Was it at move 10? Those shows, they go bi-weekly, yeah. Well, we don't really have a day for it. It used to be Thursday. This one is today because it's a day off at Norway tournament. I think you have to check the calendar, guys. You have to bookmark the, website, Internet Chess Club, and just check out the calendar and try to look ahead, because... Well, we're trying to be creative, and we're trying to bring the best, and but I also have a schedule, and can't really tell you when the next one is gonna be. Yeah. Bardza. Nice. I'm thinking, I'm trying to get into this Молодец пацан thing. I'm trying to figure out, who would... I mean, there are two ways of misspelling the first word, okay? Obviously, we're talking, Russian language here, but it could be intentionally misspelled. It's just kind of the modern internet way of spelling there, which is pretty cool. I use it too. Now, nice. Sorry about this, totally off topic, but it was funny to get an encouraging message in Russian. Yeah, so this position, well, I mean, the bishop's lacking over there. Now, I was thinking about, is it so bad, I gotta give credit to Anand. It's just so cool, look, he just protects the pawn on b2, and Magnus desperately looking for counterplay. So he gave this pawn back, and now, this is good. This is good stuff. And now Anand, of course, attacking. Well, maybe this is the moment, and I agree with Anand. He said in his interview after the game that things weren't simple, and I was worried about my position because, I mean, things could have gone either way, and I think he was referring to this situation. I think the best move for Magnus would be to bring the queen out, with the purpose, when white moves the king away, play this important move. Look, guys, what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to chase this queen off the diagonal, on which the queen supports the f4 pawn. I really don't want to take like here and allow the queen come this way, because if I move the knight inadvertently, like this, then I'm gonna get mated, right? So this should not be allowed. And even allowing the white queen on f4, it could possibly go to h4, already is a bad idea. So as an improvement, my suggestion is to play knight b3. And I think that may have been one of the lines Anand was looking at. Because now indeed white has to decide what to do. Does he part with the bishop? Anand didn't seem to mind parting with this bishop. But now the pawn is going to appear on b3. No, maybe counterplay, maybe some chances. I mean, the king is weak, but still, you can play f6, and Magnus missed that one, you know. That's like dejection, you know. That's not believing in himself. And his comments at the end of the game that I had a bad position and I played badly. I mean, that's not encouraging. Now Anand builds up. Now, well, f5, very logical, obviously, grab space, and now the attack will continue. It's impossible for black to close the king side. And now Magnus went for this similar idea, but now he missed a chance to take that pawn on f4 in a better situation, and now white simply sealed off the center and the king side. And the only problem, as Anand pointed out, is how to bring all the pieces into the attack. Anand said he was happy that he parted with this bishop because he saw the way to use his other rook to double up. He wasn't even interested in capturing this pawn. Yeah, g5 came. Eventually g5 came. No, he finally took this pawn, and I think Anand already saw the exchange sacrifice and the whole thing. Well, if Magnus was hoping that old man Anand would be scared to sacrifice the exchange, then he was totally off the mark. Obviously, first of all, when you're down and you play badly, your opponents are first people who's gonna notice. And Magnus Carlsen or not, but at least at that stage, according to Shabalov, everybody was just waiting to play Carlsen, anticipating, because now this is your chance to score an important point in the tournament, and also, well, score a victory over world champion who's now hurting. Obviously, Anand would not be denied by this. His attacking play on the king side with this minor inconveniences, such as losing the exchange. Whatever, he just went forward. Now, this position is lost. You can see the rest of the game. I mean, Anand finished it convincingly. Nothing to look here. White gets the second pawn and he can get to the king, and then Anand was choosing it. Either continue the attack or win back the exchange and go to the winning endgame and whatever. It's over, guys. It is over. Well, half point after 4 games. Alright. Now I want to hear your opinion. Everyone present, please type. Type what you think, how Magnus is going to finish the tournament. Alright. He has half point after 4 games. Type Magnus's final score in points out of 9 games. Please do not type 7.5 out of 9. The tops he can get is now 5.5 out of 9. The least he can get is half point out of 9. Team Pure, you shock me. You know, the 2.5 out of 9, that would be 2.5 out of 9. I mean, Hammer is in the tournament, so no, well, maybe it won't be last place. But this is a total disaster. That's like -4. And that is, God, tons of rating points lost. People say 3 +1. Blondie check. Okay, now we have the believer here. Now, in order to score +1 in the tournament, Magnus needs to score 4.5 out of 5. Okay, he's got Grishuk with white. This is a winnable game. Grishuk, as I said, fighting his own demons, and something is off in Alexander's chess in 2015. He's reduced to... I mean, after he won the Petrosian Memorial and won both Rapid and Blitz in China, Mind Games, he was number 2 in the world. Seemingly, he had the spot in the candidates all sealed off and delivered. And then, now he's fighting with Anish Giri and whatever, you know, Kramnik, I don't know, who is there in this contention, you know, for the rating spot. Topalov is probably going to grab the top rating spot. We have Caruana and Nakamura getting there by virtue of winning Grand Prix Series. Top 2 places. We have Anand coming back as the loser of the championship match. Now we have 2 guys by rating. That should be Topalov clearly now, and then maybe Grishuk if he manages to stay ahead of Giri. They take all 12 ratings of 2015 every month, monthly ratings, and then take the average. So, I don't know. So anyway, say Carlsen beats Grishuk, and he done well against him in the past. And then he gets Nakamura. I don't know. Of course it's 11-0, but if there was ever a good moment for Hikaru to break this pattern, it seems like it's now. It's gonna be tough to score. 4 out of 9. You know Johnny 0-0 and 4.5 set by Internet Chess Club and Turlock says, you know, kind of 4 out of 9 would be okay. 4.5. I would say 4.5, and then Magnus can just forget about this tournament. He would say, alright, I messed up, the start was horrible, but I mean, I scored 4 out of 5, you know, and in the second half, you know, it's a great result, and I finished at 50%. It may not even be a total loss as far as the overall count for the new Grand Chess Tour. Maybe he'll pick up some tournament points for the standings. But I would probably vote for 4 points. I think Magnus will score a couple of victories and 3 draws. I don't know if Magnus gonna lose another game. No. But if he loses to Grishuk, or say if he makes a draw against Grishuk, and no, then I don't know. I think that's almost a must-win game. Now, after the rest day and all that, if he cannot right the ship now, then how's he gonna right that ship? Well, I think Carlsen, had an early loss, and then he got on a winning streak. I don't know, they have a floating, they had more than one day off at Tata, and but I know he won the very next day after losing to Wojtaszek. Maybe a free day, maybe a soccer match, I mean, Carlsen loves, exercise helps. Guys, like, if there is one reason for a chess player to exercise and do some sports, that helps you to break out of those losing streaks. Whatever you do, I'm getting a little older, and I'm obviously not as physically active as I was, but I mean, I would try to do some sports, whatever, time, hours, so if you have an extra day between, that's the best way to clear your head. For the girls, the girls, okay, now put it this way, when you play good chess, then you don't have to worry about that department. But you start losing, then, the girls will abandon you. Well, then he will win 5 an Ice Bucket Challenge. Caruana did Sinkfield, yep. Well, we will see, guys. We will see. Okay, so extra long show today. I was very glad, for this. Grateful for this opportunity. Lovely audience, great responses today. Just keep checking the schedule. I'll come back, I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to have 2 shows in July. So I think I'm done for this month, but 2 shows in July. So guys, please make sure that you come back and don't be late. Now, I don't know what day of the week they're going to be, but I think we all settled on this start. 5 p.m. ICC time. So make a mark. 5 p.m. New York time or ICC time. Thank you, guys. Cheers. Well, I actually have people waiting for me upstairs, so join them for dinner. So take care, guys. Thank you.